Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say a big welcome to all of our students and parents who are with us this evening for our town hall presentation. We're here to talk to you about the winter term, some important dates and details, and to answer your questions. The format will be similar to other town halls. After the introductions of our panel members and a few opening comments, we're going to open up the floor to questions. And in order to submit your questions, we ask you to use the Q&A section of Zoom. Don't use the chat section. We want to make sure we get all of your questions in order. So please use the Q&A section. We're here for 90 minutes, but I want to assure you that if you have questions that are not answered this evening, we will get you the answer to your questions as soon as possible. Without further ado, I would like, before I introduce the panel of tonight's guests, I would like to introduce the president of St. Francis Xavier University, Dr. Andy Haken.
Thank you, Dr. Walmsley. Let me begin by just saying a big thank you to all of our students out there. Together, we've navigated an incredible semester so far, and you've done exceptionally well. I also want to reach out to the parents who have been the behind-the-scenes supporters of our students, giving them encouragement. It has been a journey. And you know, we have had some slip-ups along the way, but we've learned. We've learned together how to move this forward. And it really is a moment for all of us to keep our foot on the gas as we head towards the Christmas break. We have to remember all of those good practices that brought us to this point, a very successful point. Washing the hands, cover the face, keep the distance between each other as we go forward. Those are the important pieces. And as you head home for Christmas, if you're moving outside of the bubble, carry on those safe practices. We are depending upon you. This community needs you to come back in a safe manner. Avoid low-risk behaviors. That's what we're asking of you as you go back and you spend some precious time with your families. It's a well-deserved break, and you'll be ready for it. We know that. I also want to say to those parents who perhaps are traveling into the bubble for the Christmas season, please be mindful that you need to follow the protocols here. If you're coming into the bubble from outside, you need to isolate for 14 days upon your arrival. You need to make sure that you are washing your hands, covering your face, and all of those pieces of social distancing when you're out and about. This community has an element of trust in what this university is doing, and we need to maintain that as we go forward. So my thanks to you as a kickoff for tonight. We've done well. Let's keep it going. Thank you, Dr. Walmsley.
Thanks very much, Dr. Haken. My name is Kevin Walmsley, and I'm the Academic Vice President and Provost, and I'll be hosting this evening. With us on the panel tonight, we have Elizabeth Yeo, who is Vice President Students. We have Murray Kite, who is Vice President of Advancement and is in charge of communications as well, and Andrew Beckett, who is Vice President Finance and Administration. So welcome to all of our panelists. As I say, we're going to do our best to answer all of your questions. And there, you know, information changes on public health on a weekly basis, and sometimes we won't have an answer for some of your questions. But you can be assured that we will communicate with you as soon as possible. To begin with, let's start with some important dates. As you're all aware, classes will finish at StFX on December the 2nd, and then the final examination will begin for the fall term. The examination period will be over on December the 14th. And so at that point, our students will be on Christmas holidays, and some of them will have traveled home and to other parts of the country. We are welcoming students back to campus, students who are outside the bubble, meaning they need to isolate for 14 days, welcoming those students back to campus on the 4th and 5th of January, those specific days. So you will be traveling to Antigonish to isolate in residence or in your rented house in Antigonish on January 4th and 5th. Following that, we are going to begin all of our classes online on January 13th. So that means not just our online courses, but all of our face-to-face courses will begin online on January the 13th. So for example, we will be making provisions as best as possible to get your textbooks available in the bookstore and online before you leave Antigonish so that you can bring them with you. And those of you who are not isolating, you will be taking your online courses at home or wherever you are residing outside of Antigonish or inside the bubble. Face-to-face classes will begin on January the 20th. However, before that, move-in day is January 19th for all of those students who reside within the Atlantic bubble and are not required to isolate. January 19th is move-in day, and there are no classes that day. So you will not miss any classes, and you need to be in Antigonish by the 19th so that face-to-face classes can begin on the 20th. It's very important to note that we cannot have students who are isolating mixing with students who do not have to isolate. And that's why we have these specific days of arrival and specific days for move-in. And so we have to be very careful about that. We are following public health protocols very carefully, particularly when we return with students coming from various parts of the country and internationally returning back to Antigonish. We are going to follow all of the public health protocols. So I would like to also say that we are working on days that are considered to be reading days. As you're aware, under the current health protocols, it's very important that students do not leave Antigonish for a reading week. We cannot have students leaving the bubble and coming back. Otherwise, you would have to isolate again and you would miss class. So that won't be possible, but we hope to be bringing a proposal to Senate in early December that will determine what the reading days will be for students to give them a break during winter term. So with that in mind, those are the important dates. I'd like to turn it now over to Elizabeth Yeo, who is our Vice President Students, for a short presentation.
Hi, thanks very much, Kevin. And I'm just going to touch on some of the more detailed arrangements that will be applying to students who are coming in from, primarily a lot of the arrangements will be for our students who are coming in from outside of the Atlantic bubble. That's the big thing really in January that we need to adjust to after allowing for the changes to the dates. We have built our calendar dates to really make that easier for people. So I'll dig into the details a little bit for our resident students. There's some international student changes that I'll highlight for you, touch on off-campus students and some next steps. So you will recall we spoke a lot about our general protocols. Those will, for the most part, be remaining the same. And as Dr. Haken has said, we're really asking you to commit to the lifestyle changes that COVID-19 requires. It's not about following this protocol or that protocol. It's committing to the guidelines. We know that the pandemic is going to be with us for a while. And so we are really asking everyone in our community to be making those low risk choices, whether you're on campus or not off campus, whether you're in Antigonish or home for the break. That's what's really going to allow our community to come back together in January and do it safely and help us to stay open. So for our resident students, as Dr. Walmsley said, this is an evolving plan, and at all stages, we do require public health to be approving our plans. So we're working in tandem with them. But we do have some changes that have already been decided and have been approved by public health. And one of those is for our resident students who are self-isolating. We will be able to host you for your meals in the dining hall rather than delivering the meals to your rooms. And that's kind of a big deal. It's a lot of advantages to you. It means you have increased choice for your food selection. It means that at least 3 times a day, you'll be able to leave your room, travel to the meal hall, take your meal and be around some of your classmates, roommates, not roommates, but floor mates and so on. You will be, required to be social distanced and following very strict protocols while in the meal hall, but it will, I think, provide some pretty welcome breaks to your day. So that's really good news from our perspective. When we're settling back into the residences in January, we will be reverting back to the protocols that we were in place when we started off in September. So for those of you who know, we've had some restrictions on guests in the residence. We are working now with public health to loosen up those guest restrictions a bit so that we can allow some controlled guest access in the residences. So I think that's good news to many of you who have friends in other areas of the campus that you'd like to bring in to visit you. And so we're working toward that. That plan is with public health now. So we're hoping we'll have an announcement on that soon. However, when we do get back together in January, we will need to revert back to that no guest policy just until we can be sure that that we have a healthy and safe community, and then we'll start to loosen that up again. We'll do it faster though, because we know now how this works. We've learned a lot. So we'll ask for your cooperation on that. For our off-campus students, we will be re-engaging our Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. That was a tremendously successful program, providing our off-campus students who are isolating with grocery delivery, friendly phone calls, supports, whatever has been needed. So we will be continuing that in the new year as well. Something new for international students is that we are required by the federal government for international students. We will have some new international students who will be arriving from outside of Canada, as well as for any international students who are arriving, who are returning to Antigonish from outside of Canada after the holiday. The university is required to arrange for transportation and accommodations for you. So the purpose of this is so that international students will not be self-isolating in their off-campus accommodations. They will be self-isolating in a place that we are arranging. So we are in the middle of making those arrangements now for you. We are encouraging international students to consider staying in Antigonish over the break. So if you are an international student and you have questions about this, ask that you get in touch with Larissa Strong, who is our Director of Internationalization, and she can talk you through this and as we get more details and really help you make that decision, understand what your options are, and help you make that decision. Some general comments that pertain to all of our students in self-isolation. We're getting many questions about the testing for asymptomatic students. You'll recall that everyone was able to have the 3 tests as part of their return to campus. We are advocating that the province provide this again for us here in Antigonish. However, that decision has not yet been taken. So we will hope to hear that in the coming weeks. So for now, we don't know if we will have testing or not. We're hoping so. For those of you who are flying in and will require, who are flying in coming from the airport, we know that's a bit of a transition for you, and we are in the middle of investigating the options for getting you from the airport to Antigonish. Many of you will have taken the Maritime bus and the last time, and we are looking into those bus runs. An important part of that is what we will be asking you to do, which is to complete your travel plan and your self-isolation plan. You'll recall last summer that we asked you to complete a survey for us that shared your travel plans, your arrival dates, where you're planning to do your quarantine, self-isolation. We will be requiring that from you again. And the information that you provide will help us with those transportation arrangements, because we'll have a better sense of, are you coming in on the 4th? Are you coming in on the 5th? When will we need to have those runs set up, working with Maritime Bus to do that. The final thing is, in the survey that we're sending out, we are going to be asking you some questions. We're really interested in your input on what we can be doing to make your self-isolation period more comfortable, more engaged. What would you like to see in terms of programming? Are there additional supports we can be considering to make this as positive and comfortable of an experience as possible? So that's another good reason for getting that form, that survey filled out. For us, it is mandatory, but you'll also help us to work on an experience and make sure that is as positive as possible. Our Atlantic Bubble students who live in residence can return to residence on January the 18th. And we will be taking steps to, provide you with some information on how to do that. But we're not anticipating that it's going to be as, it's much easier to move back in January when your rooms are already set up. So we are advising Atlantic Canadian students to stay at home until your face-to-face classes resume. And that is to provide that support for your roommates if you're off campus, for your friends and residents, just to make it safer and easier for everyone to adhere to those self-isolation guidelines. For the return of our Atlantic students, you'll recall we had the check-in and the green bracelet process. We are still reviewing that, and we'll be sharing information on how we will be bringing our Atlantic students back. So please, as you've all been very good to be checking your email and checking the website for updates, we will be providing those updates for you. So please stay tuned, and we will be providing this information for you as soon as we can. And that concludes my comments. We've got a lot on the go to support your success, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Great. Thanks very much, Elizabeth. Anything to add before we get started, Andrew?
No, I'm good. Open for questions.
Good. Thank you. Murray, anything to add before we get started?
I'm good.
Great. I'd like to introduce Mary Jessie McClelland, who's going to be fielding our questions for us tonight. Mary Jessie works in the President's office. Welcome, Mary Jessie. Let's get started.
Thanks so much, Kevin. We have a number of questions to start the evening. The first one, are students able to come back and start self-isolating in residence prior to January 3rd?
We'll send that one to Andrew.
Well, I'm assuming what you mean is prior to January the 4th, because our check-in days are the 4th and 5th for students starting to self-isolate. Look, we're trying to keep as much as possible to students arriving on those 2 days. It's tough for us to coordinate the 14-day self-isolation period and to ensure that students complete it in an orderly fashion and consistent timing for everyone. Having said that, we recognize that there's always extenuating circumstances for some, and I would urge you to contact the housing office, and they can take a look at your circumstances and see what might be possible in terms of getting back into residence a little bit early. But the 4th and 5th are our official check-in dates.
Okay, thank you. Question of why are we not holding online classes to start before the 13th if students are coming back to quarantine January 4th and 5th?
That's an excellent question. So what the purpose of going online was a direct response to student wishes as articulated through the town hall that we held with our students, and as a result of our comments from our student union. And we felt that being online for 5 days in the second week was a good alternative to starting face-to-face. However, placing 2 weeks online this late in the term, we felt to be an unnecessary hardship for our faculty members to be able to produce 2 weeks of online learning, in addition to the labs that are so important to so many of our science courses and human kinetics. So we need to accommodate many departments and programs with different requirements. And we felt that we needed to meet halfway to provide experience for the students, but also to serve our faculty members. And you can be assured that your professors are also working on non-mandatory academic content and non-academic content through Elizabeth's office to serve our students during that first week. So we're going to have special projects for you to do. There's going to be a well-recognized book to read and a special appearance from an author. And we have some good activities planned for you to keep you busy, because we understand how hard it is during those 2 weeks. You've been through it before, you're going to do it again. We know it's a challenge, and we're going to do our best to keep you occupied and to have a little fun.
Great, thank you. Are students told if they are to arrive specifically on the 4th or on the 5th? Can they make travel plans as to what works best for them?
Andrew?
Yes. We had specified move-in days in late August because of the extent of the surprising amount that some students bring to move into residence. Check-ins in January are a lot easier because students already have their rooms set up, and it's, most of the time it's them in a suitcase coming back. So that process is a lot easier. We would encourage students to make whatever arrangements work best for them to arrive on either the 4th and 5th, and we can accommodate that quite easily.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. What are the options for students in residence during the holidays if they stay over the Christmas holiday? Since we live in the Northwest Territories, my son has to self-isolate here for 14 days and then go back to StFX for 14 days. He is considering staying.
Sure, Kevin, I'll take that before you ask, yes.
Please.
Sorry, it's late. It's been a long day. Yes, there'll be options for students to stay. In fact, look, we welcome students to stay at Christmas time. And we know that's tough being apart from family and friends, but we want them to be safe. We're looking at the details at this point in time, but for resident students, there will be an option for them to stay where there will be a small charge for it. We're looking at about $250 for, and it's just to cover our costs during that period of time. And for the most part, as long as they're in residences that have kitchen facilities, they'll be able to stay in their own room. For those places that don't have kitchen facilities, we will likely have to move the students to a building that does have kitchen facilities, and we'll work with the students in terms of ensuring that they're looked after in terms of other requirements over the Christmas break.
Thank you. Have you heard from the IRCC if they will be approving study permits for US students?
Elizabeth, do you want to take that one?
We have not heard yet. We are approved as a designated institution to receive students, but we have not heard confirmation about what is going on yet.
Okay.
Once we find out, we'll get that information out to you as soon as possible.
Why is the policy that no guests are allowed right now from within the school? We see each other anyway, whether it be in class, at meal hall, or outside, but not allowed in residence.
Mm-hmm. I can take
Elizabeth?
that one. Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And it's kind of a nuanced situation. So when our students are in meal hall, for example, the regulations for dining facilities allow for people to be seated in meal hall and eating, like actively eating together. So, but however, we have the table space, there's adequate space between the tables. So we are meeting the public health standards in our dining hall. We are able to monitor that in the dining hall. Outside, we do have the requirements for physical distancing. Our classes are completely set up to provide for the 6 feet, and we have a mandatory mask requirement in our classroom spaces. We have, when people are outside, it is safer. People are to be physical distancing outside, and again, it's an outdoor setting. You're in a public space. When individuals have guests in residence, we are not really able to provide for the level of supervision in a fairly dense living setting that public health would allow. And so we've been very cautious. We've had to be quite cautious, especially starting off when we did not know, we didn't know the epidemiology. We didn't know how many active cases were going to be present in our community. And so between we and public health, we knew we had to err on the side of caution in our residences, because if we did have an outbreak, it would move through that residence quickly. And if we had guests coming into the residence, it would move through the other residences very quickly as well. So we have a higher standard that we need to meet, both because of the dense living arrangements as well as for our lack of ability to monitor people when they're when they're in their own rooms. Are they physical distancing? Are they wearing their masks and keeping those safety procedures? So it is a higher standard in the residence for those reasons. However, we have been doing really well here in Atlantic Canada, in Nova Scotia, in our region specifically. And so we do know that it is something that would be very welcomed for our students to be able to have guests under very strictly controlled conditions. So we would be requiring sign-in, we would be requiring phone numbers for contact tracing, some fairly strict rules and guidelines on that. And we're really hoping that public health, while we currently have no active cases, will enable us to do that. However, if we did have active cases, we would have to revert immediately to a no guest policy. That was a very long-winded answer, but I hope it does answer the question. We get it a lot. And I know it's hard to understand. Sometimes it feels like it's an inconsistency, but there is a rationale for it, and it is to protect your safety.
Great, thank you. What is the plan for any students that are not traveling home for Christmas outside the Atlantic bubble?
Why don't we start with Andrew?
Well, as I noted, there will be, for students that live in residence, there will be an option for them to stay in residence. Depending on the numbers at this stage, we're still in the information gathering stage as to how many resident students we'll have staying with us. We don't think that there'll be enough to provide a meal plan option, and that's why, as I mentioned earlier, we'll make sure that all students are in a residence building that has a kitchen facility to go along with it. Now that could change depending on the numbers that we have staying with us over the Christmas break, and is something that we'll evaluate. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, from your standpoint, I think we'll be having some residence supervision during that period of time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. We will be providing supports for students in residence. That is just something we would do. So, and in the past, I think what we would probably do is ask what people would like to see. In the past, we've provided programming and events for people. They've had variable uptake. So we would want to see what you're interested in, and then do whatever we can to make your stay a really positive one.
We're really living in a community here. We're like our own town, enclosed. And it's really important that you understand that we need to adapt as time goes on. Public health regulations change over time, and so do the needs of our students. And so we need to be, and we have been, very adaptable as time goes on. So that's why some of these answers aren't as set in stone as you might hope they would be. But what we're trying to do is to be very student-centered, but our first concern, of course, is your health.
Great, thank you. Can students returning from outside the Atlantic bubble do their self-isolation in another location? For example, in Halifax with family?
Yes, they can. The same regulations applied as were in place when we arrived in September. And so everyone needs to follow the 14-day regulations and everything that entails. And so, yes, absolutely. You can isolate away from Antigonish for your 14 days, but that will mean you need to arrive on the 19th. No sooner, no later.
Okay. Do students need a meal plan for the meals supplied on campus for campus students during quarantine?
Yes, they will require a meal plan for those students that are resident students that maybe just have declining balance. We're going to have a limited meal plan option available for them just for that 2-week period. We're finalizing the prices right now on that, but it will be a very reasonable price for meals for that 2-week period. We're like I said, we'll get the details on that very shortly.
Okay, thank you. My daughter is a 4th-year nursing student and has requested her clinical assignment to be in Halifax. Would it be possible to have the details around those assignments prior to the Christmas break so that she can figure out a quarantine residence as well as a permanent part-time residence?
There are some specific programs for which some of these dates won't work, and nursing is one of them. And so what I'm recommending to all of the nursing students is to pay very close attention to the communications coming directly from the School of Nursing as they will apply to you, because you are in special circumstances with your clinical placements. And so the School of Nursing tries to do its best with its clinical placements, sometimes to place people in their hometowns and to favored locations. They do the best that they can. So it's important that you make such a request if it's important to you. And for the rest of you who are curious about your arrival times and isolation, please look for a communication from the School of Nursing.
Thank you. What happens if our visa arrives later? Can we join in after a few weeks whenever our visa arrives? So I assume it's an international student.
Elizabeth, do you want to take that one?
Well, really, that would be something that would have to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis with the deans for your academic program. And so Kevin can probably speak a little bit more to that. In terms of residents, it would be pretty challenging, like once we're going, if you're living in residence, to support that self-isolation. I think if you're in that situation, it would be very smart to contact us and we would walk you through what your options would be.
And Elizabeth hit the nail on the head right there. If you have extenuating circumstances and your conditions are not like everyone else's, you need to let us know so that we can see if we can assist you. In some cases, we may not be able to assist you, but please, if you have issues about housing or isolation, or you fear that your academic program is at risk and you need special allotments, then you need to contact us directly, whether it's one of the vice presidents or directly with the dean of your faculty, and we'll do our best to help you out.
Okay. Where is the staffing to support students in self-isolation going to come from? It was previously provided by Residence Life, but student staff will either be in isolation themselves or be bubble students that can't be in residence with isolating students. Additionally, student staff will be engaged with online coursework.
So we could have a combination answer here from both Andrew and Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth and I were talking about that earlier today, so I'll actually turn it over to her to speak to.
That's definitely Colin. You've asked a very good question, and we are working on the staffing plans now. So too soon to say anything yet, but for those of you in the know about how the staffing works, of course, we do have some new positions in the residences, the CLCs, and we will be working around our bubble staff. So there will be some information coming out, but there is a plan in the works, and we will be communicating that to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Will the outside time for students isolating in residence be increased from the previously used 1 hour allocation?
Mm-hmm. So I can take that one. So first of all, with the changes up to the dining, that will help you a lot, I think, in terms of getting out and about at least 3 times a day. I think that will be welcomed greatly by all of our students on campus who are self-isolating. And then in addition to that, we will have outdoor time available to you. Now, because that's going to be in January, and the weather is variable in January in Nova Scotia at the best of times, we are working on that plan now. So again, that is one that we have to work very closely with public health on. So please stay tuned on that one.
Okay, thanks. Can you provide the date for the last day of classes and the exam period for the second term?
Yes, the Senate just approved the dates. The last day of classes will be April the 9th, and examinations will begin on the 12th, and they will end on April 23rd.
Okay, great, thank you. I have 3 roommates. How would it work for me to stay over the break? And what happens when my roommates come back to isolate?
So it's a very good question. And there are 7 students in some houses, all living under different circumstances. But the most important point is for everyone that the minimum health standards need to be met. And so if anyone is isolating, then everyone needs to isolate. And so you need to pay very close attention to the arrival of people to the house. And unfortunately, if the students have been in Antigonish over the Christmas period and they have students arriving from outside the bubble, then the whole house needs to isolate together. However, as Vice President Yo pointed out today, you may have some friends in town that have an extra bed and you may be able to spend some time at their house, which might be all right to prevent you from having to isolate for that 14 days. So you may consider that complicated question and how it may suit you best. But the point is that a house needs to isolate altogether.
Okay, one of the questions, the next question is about, will meals be delivered to off-campus students since they're unable to go to dining hall if they're in a situation that they must quarantine with roommates?
Absolutely, and we can't wait to deliver those meals.
No.
No,
Easy now.
Sorry,
Groceries. We
Groceries,
will,
not
we
meals.
will,
Yes,
we will
we don't
deliver
cook.
groceries.
we don't cook.
We don't cook.
We will pick up your groceries and drop them at your front door, but that it won't be cooked food. I'm sorry for jumping the gun there.
I thought the Vice President was offering a bit of cookery courses now.
You may not want my cooking.
Oh, well.
Will classes still be available online for students who have not had their study permit in time for January?
We will have, we're going to, because of student demand and increased professors' confidence in delivering material face-to-face. We are a face-to-face institution. We're at currently about 64-36 face-to-face and online. With the increased demand and greater confidence in the conditions that we have at StFX, we expect that will increase to 77% face-to-face because generally that's what students want. Currently, we have 14% of our students who are completely online. And we understood that we needed to accommodate students who could not return to Antigonish for various reasons, whether it was their own decision or their parents didn't want them to, or they were prevented from traveling based on country regulations. So we anticipate that we will have about 23% of our courses remaining online. But even in the case of some of our in-person face-to-face courses, we will have some of those sections online. So you need to be mindful of the timetable that comes out on October the 30th, and that will tell you what courses are face-to-face and what courses are online. And some of our programs that started out online, such as our post-baccalaureate programs, they will remain online in January. And if you are having an issue, the first person you need to contact is your academic advisor. If you have an issue with any course that you require and we cannot provide it here, then we will work to provide you with a letter of permission so that you can take it at another university. Most importantly, if you're unsure, contact your academic advisor.
Okay. Will international students still be allowed to complete their quarantine with relatives who live in the Atlantic bubble before arriving on campus?
Take that one because that's got many layers to it. If I've got to go through the what ifs. If an international student is returning to their home over the Christmas break, so actually leaving the country, when they come back, they have to complete their self-isolation in a location that is set up by the university. It's the university's responsibility to establish those under new federal guidelines. So you can't stay with a family member. You have to stay in a designated self-isolation spot that's being arranged by the university. If you're an international student that maybe has gone to another part of Canada over the Christmas break and are then returning to Antigonish afterwards, you can complete your self-isolation with a family member or in your normal off-campus or in residence with us at StFX. And if you're an international student that stays within the Atlantic bubble, there's no self-isolation requirement. But for any international student that is leaving the country, returning to their home and then coming back after the Christmas break under the new federal government guidelines, we will have an established location for your self-isolation where you will have to complete it.
Okay, thank you.
So then the second part of the question is if a student had to arrive early with the flight options, what options would be available?
Again, we're making arrangements on that at this point in time in terms of where that location is going to be and how we're going to do it. And so I would ask that as we're doing the information gathering over the next couple of weeks related to people's travel plans, we need to have the information on that. We're going to work with students. We know how limited some of the flight options are after the Christmas break. We're going to work and do our best to make sure that everybody's looked after.
Mhm.
Thank you. When can we expect information about staying in residence? I haven't received any questions about whether I'm staying or not over the break.
Elizabeth, I think a questionnaire is going up fairly soon.
Yeah, we're aiming to have that out no later than next Tuesday.
Thank you.
It's a guarded promise.
Will students be able to access the residence kitchen areas during the second period of self-isolation? Last time, it was strictly monitored and students couldn't even wash dishes or fill a pitcher of water.
We're still working on the rules around that. We think with some of the more clearer guidelines that we've gotten because of our experience in the fall, that there will be some use of the kitchen facilities that we'll be able to do, but it will require cleaning and sanitization after use, and with cooperation of the students, and depending on the staffing levels that we have in residences, we think some of those options will be available.
Okay, thank you. When does registration for winter term courses open?
Registration opens on November the 20th and it runs through the weekend.
Great, thank you. If a resident from outside the Atlantic bubble stays for the holidays on campus, what does it mean for them during quarantine time?
We've been looking at that over the last few days, and again, we've got to get the information gathered over the next couple of weeks to see what number of students we're going to have staying with us over Christmas. Again, that's something that we think we'll be able to handle reasonably well. That while students are in self-isolation, with the numbers that we have staying over Christmas, they don't have a self-isolation requirement. They'll be able to come and go. We'll have to schedule them a bit differently if they're on a meal plan. We'll have to look at the times that they can use the meal hall, because we probably will have to arrange something different as far as their meals during that period of time. But again, we feel comfortable in terms of being able to satisfy requirements for everybody during that period of time.
Okay. Will students self-isolating in residence from January 4th or 5th onward be brought or be able to get their packages?
We had a lot of packages back in August and September, a lot of packages. It's amazing how many packages we had during those first 2 weeks. We're expecting that volume would be less after Christmas because of people not setting up their rooms and the like. We knew that was an initial part of the demand. We're gonna make every reasonable attempt to get those packages delivered. But our priority first and foremost is the safety and well-being of students, and we've got to make sure that we're doing all we can to ensure compliance with the isolation. But we certainly will do our best to get packages delivered in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you. As fellow Maritimers, we hate to see students left behind during the Christmas break. Have you thought about a billet option within the Atlantic bubble for students to enjoy Christmas in a maritime home?
That is such a lovely thought. And we find that happens often just naturally, where friends will bring friends home for Christmas. But what I'm hearing by that question is an offer to maybe just put that out there a little bit more broadly and end up with someone that you may not have known. And so what a lovely, generous offer. And so it's just making me think that we could, if there were people who were interested in doing that, it would be a lovely thing for our students, and we could certainly see what we can do to facilitate that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful.
If exams are online, are students permitted to leave the Atlantic bubble to write their exams at home?
If exams are online, can they write the, that's an excellent question. If you are departing, if your exams are online, yes, you don't need to be on campus to write those examinations. Good question. You had me stumped for a little bit there.
So just a clarification. So nursing students, particularly fourth year students, is there a possibility that they may have to be back on campus before January 4th or 5th?
That's going to depend on clinical placements. So I'm not going to answer on behalf of the School of Nursing because there are many nuances that come with that information. So I think that you need to direct that question to the School of Nursing and look for a communication for them on that.
Okay. Are there plans, are
Mary
there any
Jessie,
plans
sorry.
to hold a graduation ceremony on campus in May?
If I could step back one question, Mary Jessie, and just add that Faculty of Education students are in the same boat. They need to be in touch with the Faculty of Education.
Okay,
With
thank
respect
you.
to convocation, Mary Jessie, we have not made a decision yet. Murray, did you have any comments about that?
No, just we haven't made a decision yet.
Okay. What if I am staying in residence for Christmas and my roommates come back to self-isolate?
Well, if you're staying in residence, you've got no roommates. It's all single rooms in residence right now, so that shouldn't be an issue as far as that goes. I mean, there'd be other people on the floor, but those people are to stay in their rooms. And so from that standpoint, don't think it would be a problem in terms of residences.
I think they may have been thinking apartment style.
Oh, in terms of the apartment style, that's similar to an off-campus situation. That if you're in an apartment that has people coming back that are from outside the Atlantic bubble, if you're staying in the same apartment with them, you would have to self-isolate as well.
Does that include, Andrew, shared bathroom situations?
Those no, in shared bathrooms, what we'll do in those areas is we'll have designated washrooms for people that are self-isolating, so that we feel pretty comfortable in terms of being able to separate that out in the residences. We did that in August as well, so we should be fine there.
We have an attendee who is hoping that there will be a strong proportion of in-person classes at StFX for the winter term.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, you may not have heard it. We're at 64, 36 right now. And we anticipate moving towards the timetable that'll be released soon. That will be at about 77% face-to-face, which is more than double what any other university has at this point. And so we're finding that students have had a good experience. I know it's very difficult wearing the masks and isolating. It's all been a very difficult process. But we're hearing that students are enjoying face-to-face and enjoying the interactions with their professors, and our professors are telling us the same thing. And so when we made that decision a long time ago, we said that we're going to go face-to-face, and that was the whole reason why we continued with the extensive planning exercises and all the work that went into making sure that students were safe. And so that's our intent.
Okay, thank you. For graduating students, will there be an X-ring ceremony in December?
Murray?
So I didn't hear the last part of the question. Will there be?
An X-ring ceremony in December?
Yes, Dr. Aiken sent a note out last week that indicated that we will be having X-ring ceremony subject to some restrictions and limitations to ensure the health and safety protocols will be adhered to. I can indicate that different than last year or previous years, there will be no parents or guests allowed on campus to view the event. So it'll be strictly students only. And we really need to be careful with regards to those health and safety protocols, but we think we have a good plan going forward. But all of this is subject to what happens between now and December 3rd. If a spike happens or active cases happen in our community, then we would have to go to an alternative plan. But we're confident with everything that's going on and the way our students are adhering to the protocols. We're confident that we will have an in-person X-ring ceremony. Again, looking a little bit different though.
That's
Okay,
an important point that Murray raises. With any event or any situation, no matter how far away that event is or the situation, we have to follow today's healthcare standards, today's health protocols. We can't do any anticipating. And so whatever is the rule today will be the rule going forward until we know anything differently. And then that change will be communicated to you.
The X-ring ceremony is one of those moments that is so important to StFX, but we really do need your understanding this year and moving forward. We want you to have this ceremony, but not having guests or family there is important. Remember, we're trying to keep the community safe as we go forward. So if you don't have to have people coming in for that ceremony, don't be here. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Safety of community, job one.
thank you.
The other point that I just raised on that one too, Mary Jessie, is we do have students that are studying online at this point in time. Don't be thinking you can fly in or come into town from outside the Atlantic bubble just for the X-ring ceremony. You're subject to a 14-day isolation period. And so if you're not in the Atlantic bubble at this point in time, you will not be able to participate in the X-ring ceremony.
Actually, thanks for raising that, Andrew. New this year because of COVID, all the students who wish to participate in the X-ring ceremony, we have a registration and RSVP online system that will be going live. And the reason for that is understanding the numbers of students who are attending so that we can best plan in terms of the social distancing and the safety protocols. But in addition, a level of due diligence on the university's part to ensure that everyone who's coming is within the bubble.
Thank you. Is there a possibility of finishing the academic year online?
Are you referring to the fall term?
I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure of the context of the question. The only reason that everything would go online is if we were shut down by public health. Then we would move to an online situation. We can't take a face-to-face course and make it available online to students in an immediate fashion. That's just not possible. So if a student had to leave, for example, we would have to have extenuating circumstances, which are personal or medical, that are documented to assist the student to get the material that they need. But we can't have a student leaving and then expecting that a face-to-face class would be transformed into an online experience, for example. We just don't have the resources to do that. So I hope that answers your question.
I wonder if the question may be if a student prefers to study online rather than face-to-face, will they have the options to continue their program online?
That would be the case starting with the new term, of course. And that would be a very difficult situation, but not insurmountable. We would work with the student to make sure that we look at transfer credits from other universities. We would have academic advisors who would be assisting students by looking at the courses that students require to assist in providing letters of permission so that students could go online if they could not, for some reason, be face-to-face.
Okay. Do you have a quick question about the fall term final exams? For some that are done, will they all be done online? Or is there an issue with students leaving campus before final exams start to come home earlier for the holiday break?
Students need to be very aware of the nature of their final exams. If they're in-person exams, they need to be here. And so you need to be aware of the final examination period, and do not book your plane tickets until you're aware of your responsibilities with your final exams.
So just a point of clarity, a student is wondering if they're living in a double room now, but it's seen as a single, is there an option that they will be getting roommates in the winter term?
Nope.
No.
We're a single room zone.
Will you stream the X-ring ceremony for parents?
Absolutely. We've always streamed for parents, and that's going to continue. We've also, we're planning on adding some digital electronic features too that we've learned through COVID that we can make the experience a little bit more engaging for our students and also for people watching. So it'll be a great event.
Thank you. Can parents drive students back to StFX after the holidays from outside the bubble?
As is the case in September, the province did approve the ability for parents to drive their students. There are a number of forms and procedures that you need to go to cross through New Brunswick, coming into Nova Scotia. And a very, very important piece of information is that the parents must self-isolate while they are here. You're not required to stay the full 14 days. You can come and stay and drop your student off and leave. But during the time you're here, you must be isolating, and only very sharp requirements around, getting gas, not going to dining facilities, not like staying away from restaurants, just being very, very strict about your own contact within the community during that period of time when you're with us.
Great, thank you. Will there be a pass or fail option for end of semester grades?
No, we are not exploring that option at this point. We've had very good success in the classroom to date, so far reported, so that is not on the table at this point.
Okay. If it is necessary to transfer credits from another university or to take a course at another university, will there be an extra amount paid for doing so? And do we pay separately for those courses?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have a direct answer for you on that with respect to tuition, unless Andrew has a feeling about that. I think
I'm not sure. We don't double charge students for courses. So we're not charging a fee for tuition and then having you pay tuition at another institution. But we can get confirmation of that through the student counts office. I just don't have the fee schedule in front of me.
Certainly, if you were a full-time registered student and had to pay full tuition but couldn't get the courses that you need, you would drop out of full-time tuition, and then you would be able to spend that extra money on the courses that you need from another university. As Andrew's good answer to that, we don't double charge.
Okay. An individual has a question regarding, can students who are isolating off campus arrive on the 6th?
Students that are self-isolating off campus can arrive whenever they like. Basically, again, what they'd have to keep in mind is while they're self-isolating, they can't attend classes. So if they're, they would run the risk of with face-to-face classes starting on the 20th. They might miss some classes if they're not able to be back in Antigonish and complete their self-isolation prior to that.
And I would add on to that the risk if that off-campus student has roommates. The 14 days starts when the last person arrives.
That's right.
I understood there might be a possibility for international students to remain in Antigonish during the Christmas break. Can you expand on that a little?
Again, I'm assuming that question is regarding a student that's in residence, right? An international student in residence right now that may want to stay. because off-campus international students, obviously they're renting accommodations. They can stay in those accommodations over Christmas. For residences, yes, there will be an option available for students to stay in residence. Most of the students will be staying in their own rooms, depending on whether there's kitchens available. And there will be a small charge to recover our costs during that Christmas period. And we're looking at about $250 for the Christmas break for students to stay in residence during that time.
Okay. A question on the first week of classes in January is 100% online. What happens with the engineering curricula, for example?
If there are any idiosyncrasies based on program, that will be dealt with by the program itself. So we don't have a blanket rule for all programs, but the majority will start online for 4 or 5 days, 4 days, and then be face-to-face January 20th. If there are any individual differences, the department will work out those details. So please contact the department directly.
Great. Our final question, does the university have a plan regarding the developing COVID situation in Ontario and Quebec and its possibility of spreading to the Atlantic provinces?
I'll start this one off, and I'm sure others will want to kick in. The university recognizes full well that January is likely to be our highest risk month that we've had during the whole academic year. It's why we've talked about throughout this call and with all the plans we're making, the importance of strict adherence to that 14-day self-isolation period. With the plans that we've got in place, with students' cooperation and with close monitoring of that 14-day self-isolation period, we're certainly assured with the best guidelines that we've been given and guidance we've been given from public health, that is the absolute best measures that can be taken to protect our campus, our community, and the safety and well-being of all involved.
Okay, thank you. So this is a comment from a parent. It is so good for my son from Alberta to attend university away from home. Many of his friends are home for their schooling, so the parent really appreciates everything that the university has done to make this happen, and their son is very happy here. He's loving it.
Thank you for that.
That's what we like to hear.
That's very good. Yeah.
So that is the end of our questions that have been posed.
I like the fact that somebody asked about Dr. Haken's background and whether it really was daylight. And the answer is yes. The sun shines in Antigonish 24 hours a day.
You wouldn't believe that. It's better than Alberta, I'm led to understand. Yeah. Thank you.
So, yes. So the questions have been fielded, and let me say on behalf of the panelists, thank you very much. But if you have a question that arises, please get in touch with us. We really appreciate everyone coming out and asking us all these questions tonight. I'd like to turn it over to our president, Dr. Haken, for some closing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Walmsley. Everyone, thank you. Listen, we know it's adding a little bit of stress to your lives by the sort of changing landscape that we have, and literally it can change day by day. The news is, stay tuned. If you have questions that you think of following on from tonight, don't hesitate to connect. We're here to help you. We want this to be a success for you. We want you to get home safely. We want you to return safely. The world is changing. We're changing with it. And there will be new questions arriving every day. Do not hesitate. I want to underscore before I leave the importance of health and safety one more time. I know you've heard it a lot, but it really is a few simple steps. Wash your hands, cover your face, socially distance. Those are the things to do. Avoid high-risk behaviors. Don't go into high population areas if you can avoid it. Don't go clubbing. That's the big one if you can avoid it when you're outside the bubble. Just take it easy. Come back safe. We want you back safe. This community really wants you here with us. We want you to carry on your academic studies. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you again for your time. Keep the questions coming. We appreciate it.
Last note, Mary Jessie, someone's asking if the session has been recorded because of the time change. They missed the session. I believe that, oh, there we have an answer.
Mhm.
The session has been recorded and will be posted online with the next 48 hours. All humor will be included. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
everybody.
coming out. Good night.
Good night, everyone.